course.
Check. Talking like your actual talking voice.
And you know what?
You know what?
You know you don't want your feet ever showing in videos, apparently.
Why? Because
everyone wants people pictures of feet. I mean,
make money. This is not what we're talking about today. Hello, everybody.
Welcome back to the...
We need an intro song or something. Let's be more enthusiastic. Ready? Hey, everybody.
Welcome back
to...
Oh, wait. Why are we saying it separately? Welcome back to the Energy and Heart podcast.
With...
the one and only mental health speaker, big sister of the internet,
Ooh.
Jiggy you. Oh, you see what I did there?
And... I was gonna say Mama Bear, but she's not going by Mama Bear no more.
What's the new name? Bitch.
Producer.
Yes.
The executive producer. Steph.
Thank you.
I hear it going off in my head right now.
I heard it too. No, I heard the children. I heard the children singing.
Oh yeah! All right, let's update the people.
Intro still in progress.
Intro still in progress. Let's update the people. By the time that you're watching this, today is July something. July
14th.
14th. By the time you're watching this, I bet it's August.
Yeah. This is how it works, yeah.
Or we upload all the episodes at the same time when we drop it.
We could. We'll see how we feel.
Uh-huh.
We'll feel into it.
How are you? What's going on?
Did you see my eyeballs? Like, did she just ask me how am I? Let me sit with that one.
What's one thing that you're excited about?
One thing that I'm excited about. I heard crickets go off in the.
Ooh, I'm thinking Jeopardy music. Damn, you're a producer now.
Am I editor?
You're a
now?
producer. Oh my god.
Am I? One thing I'm excited about. I'm actually really excited because it's my friend's birthday this weekend, so I'm gonna be driving to OC to hang out with her. I feel like so many crazy things, or not crazy things, so many fun things happened there during my 2-week vacay that I just came back from. So I just feel funned out. Like I kind of need some stillness.
Let's talk about last week. How was your break? How was your 2-week break?
It was really good. I like, this is the first time that I took 2 weeks completely off. Did not do things unless I felt a higher sense of urgency for. Basically only like emergencies like that I felt like I had to like take care of, and like I wasn't actively like recovering from some like burnout. Like I wasn't ill like from like work. And so for me, I think the stark difference is like, holy shit, there's like so much more peace, right? Like I feel like I was like resting, like, and halfway through the day I was taking another nap, and then I was like sleeping early, and I was like, wow, how much sleep can a girl get? You know, like, let me like count the hours for that. You know, it's like most of the day. And so something I did notice towards the end of the break was like, or actually throughout the break, like people were always like texting me, trying to reach me, trying to like plan calls and like ask for support and stuff. And then there was a point where I was like sitting with the fact that like I actually feel super obligated to answer people's like texts and calls. And I was like, where does this come from? Like, is this my fucking email inbox? And I was like, no, it doesn't have to be. Like, you can just answer whatever calls to you, what doesn't call to you. Right? And so I never thought about it that way. I've literally lived my entire life like answering texts like emails. And I was like, what the is this? And so once I felt like more peace, I realized like, dude, like I'm just relinquishing all freaking responsibility or sense of responsibility for like answering things, unless like it really brings me like joy, or I really feel like I'm like open to like actually connecting with the person. So I always feel obligation. Somebody sends me something, and just okay, let me just put it on my calendar, automatically GCal like invite. And I'm just like, okay, no more of that. Like I refuse to do that anymore. It's like, if you want to reach me, call me. Just don't expect me to text me. Don't expect me to answer any more texts, y'all. Call me if it's an emergency, and that's it. And like leave me a voicemail. Like, oh, you know what? Everyone says this to me. They love my voice messages, and I'm just like, why don't you leave me one? That's my request to you.
Yeah, I'm just like, I'm hearing an invitation. Me making sure that it's recording.
But yeah, I think I ended with like a lot of, I mean, so much happened actually during the break. But that was like one of the things I was thinking about a lot is like coming out of it, just how do I recreate this sense of peace in my day-to-day? Like how can I give myself a sense of vacation time in my day-to-day, not just like on vacation. So yeah, that's some of the stuff I've been integrating.
Cool. What's your fun favorite memory from your 2-week break? It better have me in it. Just kidding. It doesn't have anything about me.
But I hear the but. You don't have to say it. I hear it. Man, that's a really hard one. I do think Smorgasburg was really fun.
Yeah.
Like I think that's like one of the top like memories. So like always like me, you, like Cass, Carrie. I was gonna say Cass, Carrie, Jiggy, Jamie. Jay, Megan, like the whole crew was out there, and I think it was just really fun to like just sit and chill on a Sunday. I think I rarely like, I feel like when I go out we have to like, it has to be a whole big thing, like we gotta go do something, and I think that's the first time we just like sat and like hung out and like shot the shit, I guess it's like what. And that's the only like phrase that I could say to like yeah.
There was definitely a moment where we were just like sitting around talking, and I was like, wow, we're sitting down and super present and just talking instead of having this urgency to be like, let's go do something else. Like, let's get up and walk around Smorgasburg. Like, we just like sat and just chatted the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was so cool. Plus, I think it was fun that everybody was just getting to know each other because not everybody knew each other there.
Like super well.
Yeah.
Look at you, the connector of groups. That's something I do love about you, is like you just like bring people together.
You make it sound like there are other things that you like. There are so many more things you don't love about me.
No, I know I do love about you. I said I do love about you.
I know, like, but like you know when people are like, "What I do love about you is,"
like, meaning that like there's a lot of things I don't like.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I emphasized the wrong fucking word. Jeez, forgive me.
You could just say what I love about you. Yeah. One of the many things.
One of the like many things that I love about you a lot, Jiggy. Yeah, let me get into that and like 5 more. Did that feel like adequate?
Yeah, that did.
Why the fuck did I slap my own leg? Okay, wait, cool. But you also came out of break, so like tell me about like things that have been on your mind.
Yeah, for
and
me,
your favorite memory.
I think for me the break, I was just gonna wait till I go to Korea to kind of step away from everything. But I was noticing that the more and more it was time for you to take a break, I noticed that there was a alert that went off in my brain like, hey, maybe you should take a break now too, versus waiting for Korea. Oh yeah, I'm going to Korea next freaking week. What the... I literally just came back and I'm going for a month. Oh my god. Anyways, and so I was just gonna take it easy, but then because my friends were here, 2 of my best friends from the East Coast were here, Cass and Sid, and so I was just gonna like hang out with them but also do some work in the morning and stuff. But I realized like, nah, I don't want to do anything at all. I just want to be really present with them while they're here, and just be present with what we're doing. Like the things that are my obligation that I for sure have to do, I did. Yeah. But everything else that is not a dire priority, I moved aside. I think that's why one thing that I proposed to Steph was that, hey, what if in the future, let's just try it out of curiosity, let's just try it. What if we plan ahead and take a break at the same time? Because I think that as friends, holding each other accountable for many things, including burnout prevention, as well as people who may do work together, I don't think it's effective or productive for not just our conscious but our subconscious if we know the other person is working. Like, I don't think that subconsciously we get full rest, because even if it was Steph's business with her business partner, there's constantly fires to take out. Even if it's us, there's something that I needed her to do, and I felt bad about it because I don't want to call her in when she's taking a break, because I know she's taking a break. But her nature is, it's okay, I love doing this and I love helping you, but it's not okay with me. And then we kind of like clashed a little bit in that both of our integrity are so aligned that we come to a disagreement about how we can best support one another because we want to support one another. I'm here like, bitch, you on break. I don't want to bother you. I don't want you doing this. She's over here like, I'm on break, but I love doing this and I love helping you, so I'm going to do it. And I'm like, I don't care if you love doing it because it's still doing something when you should be just resting and doing nothing. Go away. Like, go away. But she's here like, but this brings me joy. I'm like, I don't believe you. Like, even if it brings you joy, it's still work. Because there's that subconscious grapple of the other person is working, therefore I might feel obligated to help, even though it brings me joy. I think that I want to explore, what does it look like if we both said, this is when we're both for sure taking a break. Let's make sure all the work and all the emails are done and completed, and we're both gonna have the messages up like, sorry Jay White and Co, we're on break, we're going to see Kehlani in Vegas.
That's gonna happen for sure.
I think that'll be the test. But I want to see how that works out, and then we'll circle back. But that's a curiosity that I have.
Yeah, I think this is like our first time like approaching like vacation experiences, right? Like this is my first time taking 2 weeks off, like smack dab in the middle of the year, not the end of the year. Like when it's New Year's and Christmas, you know? Mm-hmm. And so I think it's new to us, and I think we, despite that, like I think we handled it pretty well. I think we did the best that we could with like what we knew.
Yes.
And I want better. Mm-hmm. I think we both do.
Yeah. I don't want to normalize that we're taking a break, but because it brings me joy, I don't mind. It's like, I mind, bitch. We're gonna rest fully. I'd rather make a habit of it now. We can't say like, oh, we'll do that when we're rich. We'll do that when we're successful and have a whole team to hand off our tasks. It's like, no, I want to cultivate that now. I want to normalize it now.
And that's the only way.
This is the way.
Yeah, because like I don't want to say like at the top, but if you're the person like originating, you're leading, right? When you're leading your team, like they take cues from you, right? Like, so I definitely do think that it's like now versus later.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So my favorite memory from the break is every moment that I spent with my friends from the East Coast. Disneyland was dope. I am never waiting in lines ever again for a ride. We got so much done. We rode so many rides. It was awesome. Disneyland was freaking fun. Ran into my business banker at the club that I never go to. And I've never met him. He lives in Stockton. And I ran into him here. Crazy.
Sorry, I just remembered us on the yacht for my birthday. And the eye touching moment, and I think that has to be up there in terms of memory.
Wait, was that during your break or was that before your break?
No, it was during my break. My break started with my birthday.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, so like,
dude.
So like I was just like, dude, the closest memory I was thinking about was Smorgasburg because it's more recent. But like, I was like, holy shit, dude, my birthday was like so forever ago. My birthday was so fun.
That boat party was so much fun. It needed to last longer. That's when I learned, like, that boat party was when I realized, like, shit, I want a boat party for my birthday, and I want it to be all day because those hours just, like, I thought it would be long enough. It was not. You need, like, all day.
Yeah, it's just, like, it was so fun. Yeah, it was so fun. And I love seeing it was so fun to have, like, all my friends. I've always had, like, anxiety around, like, will my friends get along? Like, because, like, I think I always, like, I was like, oh, I knew them from, like, different stages or, like, chapters. I was like, oh, will they, like, get along? Which is a very silly thought in retrospect because it's like, well, of course, because they know you. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, of course, like, it makes a lot of sense. But I just remember thinking when I was telling Kato, to, like, when he asked me, like, who I wanted to bring, I was like, let's just do it at the park. I don't want to deal with it. Like, and then, like, once he did, I was like, oh, shit, we should do it again.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was remembering this because I just see how you, like, bring your friend. You just, like, are able to, like, bring friends from, like, everywhere, like, together and just, like, trust that, like, it'll turn into something great, you know? And I was thinking about that when I was, like, bringing my friends together, and I was like, oh, this was easy. I was like, well, of course it was. Like, what the fuck do you think, like, was gonna happen? Like, that they were not gonna like each other? Like, what?
What if it was easy?
Yeah.
Dude, I think that when you are clear of who you are and you attract certain kind of people into your life and you call them your friends or best friends enough for them to be invited to a birthday party, let alone being stuck in a boat together. Like, if they're that important to you, then that must mean that there's something about you and that relationship that aligns. And it only makes sense that it also blends with other people into your life. But also, we're all grown ass adults. Yeah. And I feel like if somebody doesn't like somebody,
y'all could have a conversation.
That ain't my problem. Navigate it on your own.
Yeah.
So
Dude, I think it's like so okay, that thought left my brain.
Oh, wow.
Well,
what just happened?
It popped in my head. I'm sorry. It literally came in. I was so excited. I was like,
there it goes. It's like a butterfly.
I'm so excited to talk about
Oh my god, that was so quick. What just happened?
I know. Wait.
Wow, that was a fleeting thought.
That actually made me really sad. Okay, I'm just gonna choose to let it go and trust that it'll come back.
Look at this butterfly floating
around.
Well, this has nothing to do with what we want to talk about today, so let's talk about our topic of the day. We mentioned in the last episode many things, but one thing that we mentioned was, I don't want to talk about this in terms of just like entrepreneurship. I think that it can be relatable to anybody. But when you work so hard...
Oh my god, I remember now. Can I say it? I really want to. Wow, it really came back. I really like. I'm
Go ahead before you lose it again.
I almost lost it just now. So like,
say it.
The thing is, okay, when you're 20, when you're like, I love the age that we're at, because nowadays you're so clear on your values. The friends that you actually have are a true like representation of who you are. I think that's why it's different from when you're like 23, 24, 25. When you're younger, it's still like sorting out like what you really align with. And so that's why I think I loved the experience so much, because it was like, oh, everyone here is like representative of who I am right now, and like is like people I see like for being in my life for a long time. Yeah, which is different from back then, where I felt like obligated to like bring certain people like in. Yeah, I used to feel that way.
Would there have been, if this was like your 23rd birthday, would there have been same people or like more people? Would you have invited people that you wouldn't invite today?
Dude, when I was 25, the people who came to my birthday were completely different. Like, I mean, not completely different. Like, there was definitely the same people, but there's like, dude, you know what Jamie said to me the other night? She's like,
Imagine I knew.
No. So you know what she said? She's like, you know, it's like we can think of our lives as like movies, right? Like, and so this is like season 2, and season 2 has a new cast.
Of course,
season 2 has a new cast, and I was thinking about that. I was like, oh, that was like a season 2. Like, this is like the new cast. That's like part of my like life. Isn't that kind of cool to think about? Like, your life as like.
This is a very Jamie thought.
Yeah, yeah, it really is.
Cast members.
Yeah.
I don't know, I constantly think in onions. Maybe we'll talk about it one day. Maybe I'm working on a project that involves onions. the onions?
Who knows?
Who knows?
Who knows?
That
was my thought, was like how it's different and how I'm like so happy with who I am around like at this point.
Okay.
But back then back then when I was like thinking about my birthday, it's just like, oh, like whoever like somewhat touched my life. Like it was like very like loose, right? But I felt like at this birthday I was like, oh yeah, like everyone here has like significantly like touched me in some way. Touched
like
my
core
life in some way.
group.
Yeah. So.
Like people you would be willing to be stuck on a boat with if it breaks down.
Yeah.
Symbolic.
Honestly, somebody's gotta save me because I don't know how to swim still.
This bitch wants to do a triathlon.
No, I just need to get, like, I talked to Rosalie about this. I need to just get better at swimming. Okay, I'm like off topic now. Can we bring it back?
I love that we like talk about people, like drop names as if like y'all know who they are. Like, oh yeah, Jamie.
I'll drop their Instagram below.
Like they want to be found or something. Maybe we should ask Rosalie first if she wants her name mentioned.
Okay, but anyway, so we'll I'm gonna circle back.
Does your thought feel complete, or did you want to explore it more about cast members?
Oh no, thanks for asking. No, I'm good.
Okay,
I'm good. I just wanted to share that one thought that flew back.
Okay, got it. I'm still thinking in terms of butterfly.
And now we're gonna circle back.
Cool. Back to what I was talking about.
Add the sound effect.
Which now I have to start over for it to all make sense. So I don't think it should be. I don't think that this only applies to entrepreneurs. I think that this applies to everybody. And about how you can work so hard on something, like literally like bust your ass. And I don't think I'm talking about it in terms of just like in the beginning stages where you're enthusiastic, you're excited to get something started. Mm-hmm. Like not even just that phase, but also way past that phase where you're still showing up every single day, putting in the work, working your ass off, way past the honeymoon phase, and how hard it is to yet still show up, trying to be enthusiastic. Even if there is no enthusiasm, you still have to put in the commitment and the work to do something, even if it doesn't show fruit. Whether or not we know it'll show fruit or not, that we continue to stay committed and continue to put in the work, and how fucking exhausting that is. What is the intention of talking about this? We can either just vent away or no. And creating space for the listeners to maybe relate. And let's take the conversation however, or whatever memories that come up to us, whatever lessons that we're learning, whatever.
I have questions.
I just realized that that's a lamb. The logo is a lamb.
Bitch, yes.
Did you know that?
Yes.
Oh my god, I thought it was like a flower.
You better put that shit on. You better add that into the video. I want to know who else thinks it's a flower.
No, well, now that I said it, they're gonna be like, "Oh yeah, Jiggy, how could you think that
now
it was
they
a
can't
flower?"
unsee it.
I gave it away already.
I think it's like I could see how. I just personally never saw that. The lamb place that G and I eat at, it's like you can see it outside my window.
Anyways, go on.
Oh yeah, sorry, I got so distracted by the lamb. I have questions. I was like, when you were talking about like, you know, you put in the work like day in and day out, like I'm curious to hear like how do you determine continuing to like move forward in that same direction or pivoting? Like how do you know? Like whether it's like work or elsewhere. Right? Because I think that's something that's very common. It's like, do I keep going? Do I pivot? Because I think there's like I have so much to say about that too. It's like I think people can feel insecurity or feel like failure or feel like, oh, I'm not committed or like whatever the fuck like goes through your mind when you decide to like move in a different direction. Right? And so like would love to just hear your perspective on like how you determine like whether to move forward or pivot, huh?
I love that you just said, we'd love to know. As if like you're like speaking for the entire
I think people want to know. Yeah, let us know in the comments. Like, let us know if I asked a good question.
I just thought that was cute. No, that's super,
valid. Yeah.
Yo, that was a great question. Like, it's super for like a really good clarity question.
Yes. Because I hear the exhaustion from you.
Are we ready to dive into this? Okay, let's go.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, let's go.
We came ready.
Okay, let's go.
I came ready.
It's funny that you asked that because I've been talking about this in yesterday and today's Team Huddle.
Hey.
And it's also today's video that I just posted, which I don't feel like you watched, which is so crazy.
Bitch, I haven't been on Instagram this morning.
Okay.
I was not on Instagram this morning.
Okay, well, let me just answer your question then. When you said pivot, what comes to mind is jobs.
Oh no,
so I'm gonna go two separate ways just in case people here are thinking from an angle of jobs. And then I'm also gonna touch on goals and dreams and commitments, like passions.
Okay.
I think there's many layers to this. What I'm personally talking about is anything that you're committed to. And so it can be goals, it can be purpose, it can be business, it can be career. And I think that this is where I want to make a distinction between career path and like a job, like a company. So what I'm talking about is being committed to your career versus being committed to a company. The reason why I want to make the distinction between the two is because I know that when I was in my early 20s, and I know that I have many friends when we first started to go into the real world and get jobs, a lot of the insecurity came from, I don't want to be a job hoe. Like, it was like super frowned upon whenever resumes showed like, oh, I stayed at this company for only 1 year or 2. And then people look at it like, well, then there's no company loyalty. Why did you only stay for 1 year or 2? Or people look at it as like, oh, you don't know what you want because you keep switching jobs or you keep switching companies. And there was, I think, like a lot of shame and pressure behind that. But I think that we have to understand that that's just how early 20s go, where you are still learning about your core values, company culture, what's important to you, what kind of work style, work-life balance works for you. And I think it's completely valid for anybody to continue their searches on finding a company that lands and aligns with what's important to you. And so when it comes to pivoting jobs, pivoting companies, things like that, I think that's an area that deserves flexibility. And because I'm talking about commitment itself. So like, not just company loyalty, but your career itself or whatever it is that you're committed to, whatever goals that you have. That is where I think that we have to be extremely clear on the intent of having that goal in the first place. And so when we are talking about going a direction and whether or not to pivot, it just comes down to like, what does that pivoting look like for you? Are you saying that you're going like plan B? Or are you saying that you're completely steering away and giving up? Or like, what is it? What does pivoting look like for you? And then whether or not you determine to pivot or give up, I think comes down to, why did you start in the first place? So if I'm talking about it in terms of purpose or goals or dreams and commitment, for example, having a business, I think that I know because I pivoted so many times. Because I've gone through my own phase of starting my own business and speaking, and then saying, maybe it's not for me, and going back to getting jobs. And then I got a job and I'm like, no, it's like really calling in my heart that this is what I'm supposed to be doing. So I go back to speaking and quitting jobs. And then I try to do both. Like having a job during the day and at night working on my business, because apparently that's what hustle culture tells us that we need to do in order to like commit to our dreams and stuff. I've tried all of it. I've tried one way of just committing to speaking business. I've tried one way of just like ignoring it, just having a job and not speaking at all. I've tried doing both. And what always stayed consistent in my heart is that speaking and influence people is what I'm supposed to be doing. That's why I think that being clear of your intentions of why you want to commit to something in the first place, no matter how big or how small, as long as it's important to you, it should be a priority. Like, what is the intention of your why? And I think that can be the anchor to how you pivot. I don't think there's shame in pivoting, but it's also about being mindful of your strategy. Okay, you're pivoting. Are you giving up? Why? Are you moving a different direction? Why? How can we make sure that it's aligned with what's important to your heart and not just giving up because it's too hard? I think the thing about passion is that if it's important to you and if you keep coming back to it, you know that's the thing that you should be sticking to.
Yeah, it's like signs.
And besides, like, people usually burn out doing shit they don't actually care about. People sometimes just burn out, like, especially jobs. Like, a lot of people just, like, haven't had the space or time or chance to just, like, graduate from college and just sit and think, what is it that I'm actually passionate about and that I want to dedicate myself to? But then again, 18 years old to 21 years old, and then telling kids to commit 4 years of their time and all that tuition money to say, you better know what you want and study for what you want and then commit the rest of your life to doing that one thing is like a scam. It's a scandal. College is a scandal.
I think what I hear in what you're saying, or I think at the heart of what you're saying is like being very clear about what your, like, I guess you could say your North Star, like, is, right? Like, your why. And I think what's challenging with that for a lot of people is, like, we get lost in the trenches of everything that we're doing. Like, I think that's what really, like, really puts us in a position where we question, like, you know, how to move forward is because, like, we disconnected with a lot of that. And I think about how also, like, a lot of people always, or not always, but, like, people always ask, I just said not always and I said always. People ask, like, how do you find your purpose, right? And I love what you said at the end, because it's all about, like, repetition. It's like the constant, like, theme. Like, if you look at your life and you look at themes in your life, if you really sit in the stillness and, like, think about that, like, you'll see, like, stuff pop up, right? And it's like, can you trust that that is, like, what you're supposed to move towards, like, even if it seems impossible, even if it seems, like, far-fetched, right? And I think that's what can stop people from, like, moving towards that. They have a little voice, like, in the back of their head that says, like, hey, like, would really love, like, if you love to speak, like, would really love to see you do that. And then, like, we just choose not to listen to that sometimes because, like, we get caught up in, like, what we feel like we have to do.
Yeah.
Or, like, you know, even ideas of, like, well, if you fucking quit, like, you're a piece of shit or, like, a failure. Wow, now I have a voice. like if you have, like, you're a piece of shit, you're a failure, or, like, you know. But I actually, like, really err on the side of, like, giving up is an important part of the picture, because for the one decision you make, like, for whatever your goal and purpose and mission or whatever in life is, you're going to have to say no to so many other things.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so I think, like, for people who are listening who may be, like, in that space, it's like it's so important to, like, think about not just what you're saying yes to, but, like, a lot of the times what you're saying no to.
Mm-hmm.
And some ways that you can figure that out is, like, to identify, like, what's not bringing you, like, joy.
Mm-hmm.
I think joy is, like, such an important part of this
mm-hmm.
process too, because when I was thinking about, like, why would you keep, I think there is some level of discomfort, like, that is part of the process. I think there's some level of, like, hardship, and I'm also thinking nowadays, what if it were easy? What if it was fun? Right? Like, are we cultivating that voice? Are we asking ourselves that question too?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's only, like, as we've gone older, or for me at least, as I've gotten older, that, like, I started thinking about that, because it's like, does life have to be this hard?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because it's in our genes, like, immigrant parents, like,
yeah,
you know, to like be used to that. And so I feel like part of breaking that generational, like, I don't want to say curse, but it's just, like, that experience that, like, we inherently, like, received from our parents is to, like, be revolutionary in asking what is easy, what is fun, like what's going to bring us joy in this process. So I feel like that can also be another like way to look at like how to pivot too. Yeah.
I think 2 things that can deter somebody from finding their purpose or sticking by their purpose is not taking the time to check in with self.
Yep.
And seeing what am I... Not that we voluntarily not take time, it's just that society makes it seem like there is no time to think this through. Because we're constantly in such a rush to figure shit out, like no matter the age. If I were to look back at when I was like 21 years old, it's like there was no room to breathe between graduating college to then going into the real world. It's like, I think we talked about it with Jamie, but it's like, man, we couldn't wait to have an internship. We couldn't wait to have a job. And so we just jump into all this without giving room to breathe. Like, is this what I'm truly passionate about? Because society puts such a construct time limit and rush us all to figure things out. But what I'm learning as I grow older too is that, homie, the older you get, you realize ain't these adults they don't have anything figured out at all. They're still figuring it out to this day, even if they're 30 years old. And so one is that I think we just don't feel as though we have the time to process, just check in with our hearts and process like what do I really care about, and then give ourselves the time to like explore it all. Having that flexibility to explore it all. And then the second thing that I think can deter us is the stigma behind giving up. Like, just like you said, I think that giving up sometimes has to be necessary. Like, saying no has to be necessary. But I think it's because of the language of giving up. I think there's a difference between giving up versus releasing. So just like you said about what we say yes to and no to, like, what brings us joy, like we're either saying yes or no to joy, we're either saying yes or no to ease. And so whatever we're giving up, instead of saying I'm giving up this job that I hate, what if we were to say I'm releasing this job that doesn't bring me joy? Then it brings us back to I'm prioritizing myself, I'm prioritizing my joy and my bandwidth, my well-being. I don't want to be burnt out anymore. I'm releasing burnout from my life, and it doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't have to be this hard. So if we look at it in that way, instead of like, this is too hard and I'm giving up, or this is really hard and I want to release this part of my life, I think that maybe directs the heart in 2 different ways. Because if we were to say like, I'm giving up, it makes us feel like a lot of shame. We feel like a failure. We may feel embarrassed. Quitting jobs, especially pivoting directions, is something that we aren't always proud to talk about at Thanksgiving dinner with or with families. Even when it comes to relationships, when you break up, like pivoting anything at all is not comfortable to talk about because of the shame behind the notion of giving up. But if we were to frame it in a way that's like, there's no shame in releasing discomfort from my life, then there's no more confidence and empowerment behind it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think language is like really key, right? Like how we speak to ourselves is really key. And I was thinking about when you were saying like how giving up has shame around it. And it's sad, like that, because it's built off of like it's meant to silence you, right? Like because if you like give up on something, if you choose not, you actively choose not to be in that anymore. When you say you give up, you're focusing on the giving up piece, whereas like it's like, why don't we ever look back at things and like recognize how much we gave to it? Right? It's like, what are the ways that we can honor like the entire process, like our giving our best? Because I think for a lot of us, like, well, I can't say a lot of us because like I only know my experience, but like I know I've given my best to a lot of things, like before I decide, like, hey, you know what, that's not for me anymore. I need to let that go in order to make space for other things.
Yeah.
You know, and I think sometimes it is toxic to hold on to things, right? Like, I think relationships are like such a great example, like outside of work, right? It's just like, when is enough? Like, when is this, like, and I think that's the hard thing, is like, how do you define that, right? Because sometimes we can't define, this is like what the 20s are about, right? Like, we can't define it, but we can't just know it. Like, you have to experience it to like actually like be like, oh shit, like that doesn't really work for me, which is what I loved about what you said earlier, because what you did was like explore different like routes, like be open enough to explore different routes, be open enough to like try different things to find the answers out, like yourself, because that's the only way to like really know. And that's why I think like exploring is such a critical part of anyone's process for life. Like, it's not just work, but relationships, like friendships, right? Like, exploration is such a important piece of that. And I feel like there's so much shame even in the exploration. It's like, oh, you don't know. It's like, well, bitch, I don't know. Like, what do you expect me to know, like, when I haven't had life experience? Like, how can you expect somebody to carry the weight of knowing everything that they're supposed to know at the very fucking beginning of a fucking journey? Like, that literally makes zero sense. And so it's like, can we like extend compassion for like when we are in that process? Like, can we celebrate when we courageously choose to like actually explore things that we might be interested, to actually follow the little voice like in our head that says like, hey, that looks cool, that looks fun, like maybe you should try that. Like, how can we honor that and like celebrate that and let that guide us, and let that like wonder like be the North Star of like how we actually like make decisions.
Damn, you said like exploration when you were talking about it, like we should be more open to exploration because that'll bring us more answers versus like acting like we know it all.
Yes,
that just reminds me of hustle culture even more, obviously, because I think that a lot of these motivational influencers out there are preaching what they preach out of their own experiences. I mean, all of us preach everything that we preach out of our own experiences, but however, it's like, how many different experiences have they had though? How much room of curiosity and exploration have they had though? Because they may have stuck to just one way of life, and they may be only familiar with just one cycle of life, and therefore they're only preaching that thing. And I don't think that the reason why you and I are so passionate about taking business or relationships or core values the direction that we do in terms of being more open about rest versus just working all the time is because we are open to exploration versus hustle culture that wants to be so certain about everything. They're very stubborn. They want to act like they just really know everything, want to be the guru of everything, all the self-help, all the self-development. They have books. Apparently, just because you have a book, you just like know it all. And everybody wants to be the master and have a master class, and everybody wants to be the go-to guide and all of that stuff. Everybody wants to influence people, but it's like, that's only one story. It's not all. It's not the only answer to life. Like, hustle and grind is one way of working, but it's not everything. It's not the only way of working. But because society normalizes just having the answers all the time, they want to act like they got the answers all the time. So therefore, they want to act like that's the only way. So even though there are influencers out there or people out there who do preach rest and work at the same time, their voices aren't amplified enough because this hustle culture voice is so much louder, because that's just the way that society has been for a very long time when it comes to pulling ourselves up by the bootstraps and going after the American dream. Like, it's been branded, it's been marketed this way for a very long time. It's not because it's right. It's not because it's correct. It's not because it's the only way. It's literally because society has been branded and marketing this way for a very, very long time.
Oh, man.
It doesn't mean that it's the only way.
Dude. This is why one, you have to take what people say online with a grain of salt. Right? Like, just because oftentimes the person who's the loudest person in the room is what gets heard. Right? And so I always come back to, like, man, then this is why this podcast is important. This is why, like, you sharing your story is important. Me sharing my story is important. Is because, like, there are so many loud voices in the room that, like, to me, it's old ideas. Like, we live in a different time period. Like, it's like we need to start updating the way that we function, because whatever was going on before is just not sustainable. Like, you see it slipping now, you know? You see, like, big name people, like, have conferences and get sick, like, right beforehand. It's like, you know?
And then it's admired because they work like so hard so they get sick, but then when they show up, even when they're sick, it's like, wow. It's like, why are we normalizing that it's okay that people kill themselves to show up? And I'm sorry that there's no other better term to describe this, but it's literally self-harm. It's very unhealthy. Why are we normalizing showing up even when we're sick, even when we're injured? We're literally killing ourselves. Why are we normalizing that? Why are we celebrating that? Like, there are times I do believe, like, perseverance. I do believe in perseverance and persistence. I do. But why are we celebrating it so much so that, like, we expect everybody to do it? And when it comes to, like, the whole, like, lone wolf mentality and stuff like that, like, have you ever thought about listening to that kind of language and thinking, like, man, this person's just hurt. This person may have been abandoned in the past. Maybe this person didn't have their parents around growing up. Mommy or daddy wasn't around growing up. Maybe no one really, like, believed in them. Therefore, being alone was the only survival tactic they had. But now, because that was their survival tactic and defense mechanism, they're thinking that's the only way of life. Therefore, they're preaching it around the world. Now the whole world thinks that the only way to succeed and be happy is to be a lone wolf. Everybody's influence is only made out of their own story and experience. That's why they're preaching being a lone wolf and self-made. Because that's the only life that they've lived. It's not because it's right. It's because that was their only experience. We over here saying that, yo, community is the shit. I'm telling you that I've been a lone wolf. She's been maybe too. But, like, we're saying that community is powerful because we're seeing the power of it.
I think being in community, like, is incredibly vulnerable. I think that's why some people don't want to go there. Like, I think to start to want to develop a relationship with, like, other people, to actively share, hey, like, I'm actually, like, you know, really struggling with something, like, can I ask for your help? Like, that's an extremely vulnerable thing. Like, if you're taught to be super independent, if you've, like, your entire life, like, been taught to do things by yourself, and lauded for when you're independent, right? And so I think that's why some people have a hard time, and I have a lot of empathy for people who are in these spaces, because it's like, to go from that means to turn your world completely upside down, and to, like, try something completely new, and we all know, like, comfort is, like, where our bodies want to stay. And so to actively try to put ourselves out there, to share something with somebody, to share an experience with somebody, is incredibly intimate and, like, very vulnerable. And I think that's why it's so challenging, like, to get there. And so I think ultimately it's, like, for everyone who's trying to decide, like, which way do I go, which is, like, I feel like everyone's just lost. Like, we're just trying to do it together, right? Yeah. It's so much more fun to, like, be lost together, and to, like, figure it out together and empower each other to discover. But I think it's also just, like, I fucking lost my thought again.
Stick with it.
What was I saying?
Being lost together.
Yeah, being lost together, and, like, it's so much more fun. Maybe I'll continue, and then maybe you'll just interrupt me again. Yeah. That's why, like, when people say, like, vulnerability is weakness and stuff like that, I'm just like, ain't nothing wrong with vulnerability.
It's not vulnerability's problem. I just think you haven't healed. I just think that you haven't been open to exploring healing. I've literally heard Andy Frisella do a podcast talking shit about people needing to heal. That people talk about healing a lot nowadays. And I'm like, of all people, you're shaming healing. Funny. How coincidental that you're talking shit about healing. But yeah, I think that it does take a lot of vulnerability in order to be in community. And at the same time, like, yeah, joining community, especially when you've been just abandoned in the past, or people have betrayed you or turned their backs on you. Like, yeah, trust is exhausting. Going through community and the process of finding community that aligns with you is exhausting. But it doesn't mean there's anything wrong with community itself. There's nothing wrong with community itself. It's just that it's exhausting for certain people, but there's no reason to shame community and to shame vulnerability. And I think that what's interesting about society is, like, for example, this is going back to just amplifying the voices of hustle culture versus like community itself, or like being self-made versus community itself. For example, like Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan, they didn't have just one coach, they had two. So a lot of people know about Tim Grover, who wrote Relentless, right? Mm-hmm. Relentless and the new book Winning. Everybody knows about Tim Grover. But how come no one really knows about George Mumford? These are both Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan's coaches at the same time, basically. Tim Grover wrote Relentless, and he's on all these motivational podcasts. George Mumford is the one who taught Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan how to like meditate and how to be mindful. He's a former monk. He has a book too. But how come nobody knows about him? How come nobody talks about him? Tim Grover wasn't the only one on the sidelines in the basketball court when they were playing. George Mumford was right there too. Ain't nobody talking about George Mumford. Why? They both have books. They were both coaches for Kobe and Michael Jordan. Why are people only amplifying talking about Tim Grover?
I think it's, dude, it's perception, right? It's like sexy.
It is sexy.
It's sexy, like, to like talk about being hard and like, you know, all these things that are part of like hustle culture. Like, nobody wants to hear that, like, it's in the stillness that you find the answers. Like, no one fucking wants to hear that. Like, no one wants to hear, like, if you lay down and rest, like, that you're gonna feel much better. Like, there's nothing sexy about that.
People always want to talk about, like, being a lion versus being, like, George Mumford talks about being the eye of the storm. Being the center of a storm. There's a storm around going on in your mind, in your life. Being grounded, being centered. To me, that's sexy.
Oh, but I mean, I'm on
that same page. To me, I mean, both sound great. I would love to be grounded and centered in the midst of chaos. And that's what George Mumford talks about. How do you think that Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan always stay so focused and unbothered? It's not just because they're freaking lions. It's because they are the center, the eye of the storm. Why are people always talking about, like, Gary Vee and his successful businesses? But not many people actually talk about Ariana Huffington. Everybody knows the Huffington Post. Mm-hmm. She left her own company with her own name on it to create Thrive Global, which is like a new company that helps people with like their mental health and burnout prevention, because she was burnt out from creating Huffington Post. It's still called Huffington Post. It's like the Huff Post or something now. She left the company with her own name in it to create something because she was burnt out and miserable and realized, man, this doesn't have to be the only way of life. But ain't nobody talking about this.
Yeah, that's wild. I actually found out about her. I think it was actually through you, about Thrive. Follow at Jiggy for all the resources.
They're doing like all this research stuff and like bringing workshops into companies for burnout prevention and stuff.
Yeah. I think, like, tying it back to what we were talking about earlier in terms of, like urgency, I feel like the reason why we burn out, the reason why we buy into this is because the natural state of the world that we are born into is in a constant state of urgency. And it's all a lie. Like, it's all to create, like, more workers, work harder, make more money. Like, it's all of that. And so...
Make more money for the people who benefit from it, not make more money for the people who are working.
Yeah. Yes. And so I think it, you know, when we think about... You know, we started out talking about, like, what was it?
That we work so hard to a point of exhaustion and we keep going.
Yeah, it's just like, it is completely revolutionary to sit back and to explore. So it's like the threads of like exploring, the threads of taking time, the threads of like resting, like all revolutionary and all like just honestly important, like not even for success of life, but just to, I think, live a life that feels whole, like that feels fulfilling. You know, like no one's out here like, I want to live a life that's whole. It's like, I just want to live a life where I make hella money and success, which is, there's nothing wrong with that, but it's just like, make sure that your definition of success is defined by you and not defined by somebody else. Right?
Damn.
Man, that was like a...
We're not done though. I want to circle back to what the prompt was. There are two directions with this topic, which the original topic was like when you bust your ass and you work on something so hard, no matter how hard it gets, or you don't see the fruit of something. And I think the direction that we took it was one direction, which is like, how do you know you got to stick to it, or how do you know you need to pivot? And so we talked about the pivoting and exploring curiosities and giving ourselves grace and the openness to give ourselves more time to see if this is what you truly want. Taking it to the other direction now, if you do know this is something that you want, and if you do know that this is what you're committed to, how do you keep showing up with persistence and perseverance, even on the hard days where no matter how hard you work, you keep showing up? And how do we know that it's going to be worth it? This part, I think, is for the people who are thinking about giving up on things that they shouldn't give up.
So you're asking me that?
Yeah, let's talk about it.
How do you know?
Or you get to share a story.
So I remember when there was a point where I was struggling a lot with building RBTL and like really intense like burnout, and I actually like remember calling Brian and like just chatting through
Brian
like, all
from
the
episode 1.
Yeah, see these themes, these people, they keep coming up. And so I just remember like something that he had said to me, which was like, hey, like, slow down but don't stop. Slow down but don't stop. Like and
let that breathe. I hear a knock at the door.
There's no knock.
Let that sink in.
Shut up! Wow, dude! You fucking bitch! I was like, that's from episode 1, bro. Like, what are you talking about?
Oh my god.
I should have known. I feel so...
Wow, I kind of expected more from you, but okay.
I kind of expected more from me too, honestly. You fucking bitch.
Slow down, but don't stop.
Yeah, slow down, but don't stop. And I remember because he at this point was like a couple years into his business, and we were talking realistically about like how much he works. What?
Sorry, I'm still thinking about it.
Okay, I'm gonna make some space so you can just get it all out before
I'm gonna look at the lamb. Keep talking.
It was pretty great. I should have known. I know you've been doing this since like Jiggy always does this. Like when we're in sessions in RBTL or in like fellowship, she'll literally like when there's like something significant that happens, she'll fucking change the background of her Zoom like to the sync.
Yo, you just gotta let it breathe sometimes. Let it live. Go on.
Yeah, so he said slow down but don't stop. And I remember actually having a very real conversation, because now at this point he's been like several years into his business. I'm gonna keep talking and you can keep laughing. That's cool.
I'm just gonna change the focus over to your face.
I feel like you'd laugh if you looked at my face.
Just go on. No, I mean when I edit this later.
Oh.
Okay, go on.
And so he told me, he was just like, oh, nowadays I'm only working like maybe 4 like good hours a day. And when he told me that,
what the fuck is this 4-hour work week?
4 hours a day.
No, because on some T-Fair shit.
We talked. The thing is, like, it was important for me to hear this because you realize like most of the work you're doing is not the most important work. Right? And so especially now, like, because in RBTL, like I've gone to a point where like I have been responsible for everything, which is great, but the mentality of thinking you're responsible for everything is not serving me anymore. So it's like, I am one fucking human being. How the fuck am I gonna be doing 6-7 jobs? Like, that's ridiculous to like sure, for a little bit maybe like it made sense to you, you're strapped on money, you're strapped on resources, but there's a point where it's like you cannot solely do this and you need to delegate. But that journey in and of itself, like, nobody wants to talk about this. Nobody wants to talk about the fact that like it is absolutely fucking terrifying to trust somebody to do the work at that caliber that you would want, right? Because like obviously we have high standards for like how we operate and what we want, but like you cannot let that like bar like stop you from like giving people chances, like taking the time to invest in like teaching them, because that is actually more valuable in the long run. Like, this is a short-term solution, me doing everything, you doing everything, right? It's like, it's all about like how do you delegate and shifting the mindset completely from that. And so when Brian said that, I was just like, wow, like there's something clicking for me, because if I really were to take stock of like what I'm doing every day, like some of these things, man, like somebody else should be doing them. You know, like somebody else is probably better than me at doing it. Like, just because I can doesn't mean I should, right? And we talked about this in the or maybe the first episode, where it's like, if your whole team, like if they're aligned in their gifts, right, then like it just works out, but like the impact is like tenfold, right? So it's like, what does it look like now to like move away from this like you having to do everything and like giving people chances to also shine. It's not just about like you doing it by yourself. So
But for the time being, how do you know it's worth it?
Oh, that's a good question. So
it was the original question.
Yeah, sorry. I literally went. I was trying to figure out the thread too. I was like, what was I trying to harp on? How do you know it's worth it? Okay, so I know one part of how I know it's worth it is like, is this decision serving the bigger picture of like the impact of the North Star situation that we were talking about earlier? That is always like it, right? And then two, I always think about like, is this a long-term solution? I want more and more, a higher and higher percentage of everything that I'm doing being towards a longer term solution, right? So if I can focus on those things, because I know for sure this is the reason why I'm here and my mission, right? So we've already gone past that, right? But the other thing is just like longevity. For most of us, we cannot think beyond like what's occurring in our fucking day to day. But like that's working like in the business versus like on the business. Right? And so working on the business is making decisions that like will support you like long term. And so that to me are like the two elements of like, how do you know if it's like worth it?
What is your mission?
I think it's like, I think there's like a mission for like my life and my company being a vehicle for that mission.
Right. I'm gonna get more into this. So what is your mission for life?
So I think my mission for life is to inspire people to live their best lives. Like, I think it's that like simple.
Say it slower.
My mission in life is to support others to live their best lives. And when I say best, I don't mean like success and like when I say success, it's usually there's like money and all that, like, which I think is part of it. But I want people to live fulfilling lives, whole lives. That is like the definition of what I feel like is a best life, right? So I think there's like elements of that, obviously, which is like in your relationships, when you invest in your relationships, you move more towards like wholeheartedness and like wholeness and fulfilling. And so that's why RBTL is the vehicle, one of the vehicles for which that like occurs, right? When I think about like battling hustle culture, which is another part of living a whole life, that's why I'm involved in what like you're doing, right? And so I think there's like elements of these things in the businesses that I'm a part of, but then it's also like, I think part of living whole lives is people like doing stuff that they enjoy. So me supporting my parents in like their pineapple stuff is so that they have an opportunity to like do something that they enjoy. Like my mom was making like baking stuff, and I'm like, that's one way that I'm supporting somebody to live a whole life. Yeah.
We're always going to say whole life. It's never whole life. It's whole? Like whole life. It's whole.
Oh, yeah, life. It can't be whole life.
So, guys and ladies and they thems, whatever you are, watch what just happened. We talked about way in the beginning. I differentiated like commitment, goals, dreams, and then careers and pathways versus jobs. Sticking to something through perseverance, being very clear of your intentions behind your goals and dreams and your commitment, and then sticking to something, persevering through, and we talked about pivoting. We said be open to exploration, which includes pivoting sometimes. We differentiated the terms between giving up versus releasing. And so look how Steph just said what she said, and I'm threading it all together. It's that her mission is very clear. She knows what her whole entire big picture mission is. That is her pathway. That's her commitment. That is the thing she will never give up on. That's for sure what we know is what serves her heart. That's what she will never give up on. She will never give up on helping people live their whole lives. That's what she will never ever give up on. What she did pivot and release is the way she gets there. How she does it. Yes, bitch. Come on, somebody.
Wow. So if you know, you threaded that shit together.
I did, bitch. I did.
She's the lead facilitator at RBTL, by the way.
Thank you.
This is what the magic that she does.
So if you aren't familiar with Steph's story, she had a business in the past before RBTL, and I can't speak for you, but I would say that from what I've seen and what I've heard from your story is that at first it was something that just put a complete fire in your heart. I think that, to be honest, like no matter what happened in that business, it was something that clarified for you, pulled you out of like a 9-to-5 life, and then to call you into this is your mission and this is one way that you can. It was like your introductory, like it was the thing that brought you out of the 9-to-5 life because it just simply didn't serve your mission, and introduced you to, hey, this is how you can do it. Yes. So no matter how it ended, I think that we can give it credit in that way.
100%.
Over time, it turned out that, as we aged and grow, like over time, Steph may have realized, like, this is why I talked about company culture. This is why I talked about core values, is that like over time, you learn that certain things just don't work the way that you want it to work, and certain things just doesn't land. And even though the mission is still true, Steph's mission is still true, the way that she went, they may have gone about it in the business just like didn't work, didn't serve her whole life anymore. So she released it because it was no longer bringing her joy, and it was going against her core values, which is a whole life. And so she didn't give up. She released that part of her life and then created this new thing, which is now RBTL. Now it's her next vehicle. So you see how the mission is still true,
Right.
The mission, she will never give it up. No matter how many other businesses that she might make in the future, it will all still align with the mission.
Yeah.
She will never give up. This is the part where she will bust her ass, and no matter how hard she works, she will never give up. The way she gets there, the way she does it, the vehicle that she says, that's the room where there's room for exploration, there's room for pivot, there's room for strategy.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think strategy also includes room for pivoting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's the podcast. That's the difference.
Yeah. Wow. Yo, that was like, wow. I am like shocked at how like it all came together. y'all think we planned this? Like y'all think we planned this, but it's just like.
Before this, we were talking about what we're gonna talk about, and she was like, "So, what? Like, how are we gonna lead this?" And I'm like, "Let's just see what happens."
Trust, y'all.
Trust.
I
know this.
Dude,
I know this.
It was so wow.
I know what's gonna happen. I trust us. I trust us.
The theme of like evolution, I think, was like in all of this. It was just like you gotta make room for like you as a human being will be evolving, and so that's why it's important to like identify that one North Star, but to allow for space for you to change and shift and move as like you learn new things.
Yeah. And I hope this encourages you guys that like purpose doesn't always, it's not just about like doing something. The purpose and mission is like things that kind of can't be seen, but however you make it happen is how you make it happen. And so there's no shame in whether you have a business or get a job or you have a side project, a side hustle. Like none of it, like it's like, I don't want to say it doesn't matter what you do, because it does matter what you do.
Yes.
But it's like there's no pressure. There's room for you to explore how you achieve your mission. It doesn't have to mean that the only way to have a purpose in life. I think this is like a misconception that oftentimes people think that only people with purpose can be entrepreneurs, or like all entrepreneurs have a purpose and a mission. It's like, you don't have to have your own business to have a mission. You can work a job and still have a mission. This is why your core values and your personal mission has to match the core values and the company culture of the freaking company. I'm done.
Dude. I can't.
I hope this
I can't breathe. It was so beautiful.
Encourages people today. This podcast, this episode, I hope reaches like the younger audiences, like early 20s college students.
Yeah. Let's end with the hope.
Mm-hmm.
Let's end with the hope that you have for people when they listen. I just hope you get inspired to follow your dreams. It's that simple. Like, I know it sounds so cliche, but like, I hope you like feel inspired to like follow your dreams, to like define your life like on your own terms, and really to like follow the beat of your own drum, like, because that's it, like it's all you. Like, you have so much choice in that.
My hope is that you don't feel purposeless. I just keep going back to like early 20s, me, my friends, what we used to talk about. And oftentimes, like, me personally, I think I've always known that my purpose was to impact people. I just didn't like know how to get there. So like, I used to rap, I used to make music, and now I speak, and I think that this is how I do it. But I remember friends who just like went from job to job because they just like didn't know what they were passionate about or what to do with their lives. And so I don't want that to pressure you to think that you don't have a purpose in life at all. I think that the term purpose has such a big expectation on it, because if it's not sexy and if it's not like marketable, then it's not a purpose. But it's like, I do believe that things like being a great friend is a part of purpose. Like, I just personally do believe so. And I think that purpose has to do with just like how you're able to bless other people. And if that looks like just being a great friend itself, if you think about how would somebody's life be without you in it? It might suck. I think that goes to show that might be your purpose too. I would say if you feel purposeless, to just continue being more and more open to new adventures, new relationships. Get yourself out there, get in the world, like get in there with our friend Carrie, get in there. But the more you feel like you're purposeless, is that like the voice of you or just voice of society putting pressure on you? Just be more open, like open your heart up to new things. And some people, like I see it in jiu-jitsu all the time, some people find passion in jiu-jitsu when they're like 30 or 35, and people find it late. And I know that a lot of people have this dialogue that says like, oh, I wish I found this earlier when I was a kid so that I could be a world champion now, stuff like that. And I understand that desire and longing, but at the end of the day, that's not the language that serves us. So I think that it's okay to take our time, to explore, to be more curious about all things that brings you joy. And maybe your purpose is in your joy, because it's supposed to be easy. It's supposed to be easy.
I needed that one.
This was wholesome. I think this was wholesome. Okay.
Thanks for tuning in, y'all. We'll see you next time.
Yeah. Bye. Okay, type in the chats if you think that this is like really gay. Can you explain it? No. Wow, my legs look so good right now. Holy shit. Look at this.
Hey,
holy shit. Oh my god.
Okay, turn it off.
Wait, no. Tell them what this is.
This is the new peace sign. It's a new...
Who told you that?
I learned it on an Instagram video.
What? Whose Instagram video?
I'll send it to you. We'll put the link into the description.
One day, I was like taking pictures of her and she went like this, and then the next frame she went like this, and I was like, what is that?
You were like, excuse me?
That's gay. She said it's the new thing that the cool kids are. Does that the cool kids are doing it?
Am I cool?
Are you a child? Are you a kid?
Yeah.
You're no longer. We're reaching 30, bitch.
I'm a cool adult. Like, I think I'm cute.
Guys, you're the only person I've ever seen do this.
I saw somebody else do it.
Where?
Do it online. I'm gonna send you the video, dude. We'll put it in the description.
Guys, if we haven't said it before, be careful who influences you. Alright. Bye.